Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you attending Camerimage virtually, courtesy of COVID-19. My name is Stephan Ukas-Bradley. I am based at ARRI Los Angeles, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to the ARRI Academy Masterclass. Joining us today from Los Angeles as well are cinematographer Roger Deakins and his wife and collaborator James Deakins. Hello, James. Hello, Roger. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Stephan, thank you.
Unfortunately, we can't be all hanging out in Toronto, celebrating the art of cinematography with each other and catching up over dinner during the pandemic. But both of you seem to have used the time of social distancing very productively and started your podcast titled Team Deakins. Can you tell us what motivated this podcast?
Oh, I started thinking about it at the end of last year because we have
before COVID.
Yeah, before all of this, right?
Yeah.
And we have a website and we do a lot of Q&As and we do get asked the same questions over and over again. So I thought, well, if we did a podcast, all those questions we could do once and then, move forward. But then it's changed as it's come along because we started talking with people and realized that what the point of it is talking about two people that are passionate about what they do and why they're doing it, and showing that everybody does it slightly differently, which is important. So you find the way that's right for you. And it's been wonderful for us. And it's really showed us how collaboration is a very important part of filmmaking, because it just kept coming up and coming up.
Yeah. And then it's just expanded, then we felt it would be great to talk to people that we really admired. And so we reached out to people like Alex Webb, the stills photographer, I've always admired since I first saw his work. So we had a long chat with Alex, and next week we're talking to Harry Griart, who's also a wonderful color stills photographer who everybody should know, actually.
But it's been great, and we've learned a lot too. We talked to a casting director, and I realized how little I knew about casting, because they're usually done by the time we show up. Yeah. So that was fun. And we talked to a prosthetic makeup person the other day, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it's just different takes on, the same industry, what we all love doing, but just getting different sides of it. I think it's really good. And it's our connection with the world now.
Yeah, right now.
Very true. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, I think you're up to episode 63 now, which is remarkable.
We've got about another 70 probably on the waiting that we've done.
That I have to edit yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
No, and it's also, like you just alluded to, like the versatility of people you talk to. From makeup, like you said, VFX, also, sessions in regards to the craft, dealing with practical lighting, composition, lens choice. I mean, I enjoy all of them very much. I do have to say, I think I do have to start a petition to interview Andy Harris.
Oh,
well, you'll have to twist his arm.
I have been trying so hard. I have been, and I've gotten him up to the point where he said maybe, and I've got our coordinator constantly emailing him, but he won't commit on it.
I quite get it. We shouldn't pressure Andy. I mean,
okay, all right.
But everybody wants him.
He's been my friend for 30-odd years, so I'm not going to pressure him into anything.
But we want him to do it.
Yeah.
No, and a lot of your peers, like you have conversations with Dick Pope, Rachel Morrison, Linus Sankrin, really, really amazing stuff. I actually really enjoyed the conversation with Bill Pope.
Oh,
yeah,
that was
great.
That was very interesting, and I learned actually something about you, Roger, which I didn't know before, that you actually shot also a fair amount of music videos.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love music videos. Well, I've got really lucky and filmed some of my heroes, like Muddy Waters I filmed once. I mean, who does that,
Yeah, and Bananarama. Let's not forget
Yes,
about that, right?
Forget Bananarama.
But did you enjoy this experimental aspect of music videos a lot, or that it was not as scripted?
Well, actually, a lot I did were scripted. You know, so they were like little mini features, you know, and you know, each one had a different stylistic approach, so that was kind of fun. But I also did concerts, and you know, I mean, Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry and that. I mean, just film them on a concert, you know. So it was big variety. It was fun, you know.
Yeah. Well, also what I really enjoyed was the talk you did with Greg Fraser. But Greg, well, yeah, I mean, you had an interview with him, you know, talked about Lorian and some of his body of work. But yeah, that Turning the Tables is really enjoyable, where he's asking you guys questions about particular projects. You guys did Shawshank Redemption and the assassination of Jesse James, which was really remarkable.
And we've got No Country for Old Men coming up, and Josh Brolin joined Greg. So there was two of them on us.
But
I'm looking forward to that.
I think one thing that I feel is important about it is we always ask people how they got into the business, you know, how they found film, how they, you know, came to find a role in it. And I think that's really interesting for other people starting out, because it's so fascinating how everybody has taken a different path. You know, there is not one way of doing it, you know. I find that some of the most fascinating, you know, points of the conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. The title of your podcast is also very descriptive of your working relationship, you know, Team Deakins.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of visiting you on set a couple of times, and it was really amazing to see, Roger, how focused you are when you're at work. And really, it's James enabling you to concentrate on your craft, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically there's so much going on, and there's so many people with questions, and we need to know whether we need this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment. But because Roger and I work out everything together, and we work as partners, I can be that person that they ask the question to, because they know if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make it up. But I can also go to him on the set and tap him on the shoulder, because he can't snap at me, but he could snap at anybody else. And, you know, we have a shorthand, and it just enables Roger to focus actually what he's looking at, the visual, what he's shooting that day, knowing that I've got his back, and the department's back too.
Yeah, we complement each other.
Yeah.
I mean, much as we do in life, you know. So it's been really good.
Yeah, I like talking to people.
Yeah, me I don't.
No, it's pretty amazing. You know, the first you know, time when we showed you Alexa and you considered it for In Time. I mean, this was all new, and you guys went, you know, in it, you know, both feet first, and you entrenched yourself in the workflow, and you needed to understand everything, and it was really amazing to see. And it's, you know, now it's not just workflow. I mean, you also involve James with like VFX, you know, DI, you know, coordinating all of that. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, it's odd how the role of a cinematography has got more complicated instead of more simple. You think it would get simpler, but if you want it simple, you want to go back to film, you know. Just it's become quite complicated, really.
Yeah. Well, you worked with many different directors over the years, but there's always a first time. So what are some of the ways you have found to cement the relationship or really understand the director's intention so you can be in tune about the visual approach of these projects?
You know, I mean, it just starts from the first conversation before you each agree that you're going to team up, you know. But I like to have a lot of prep. I mean, even if it's not consecutive, I like to be committed on a project for, you know, maybe months beforehand, so that I'm available to go on sort of early, you know, location scouts and discussions about sets and things, so that you really get an understanding of where the director's coming from. Because, you know, we can all read a script, but we will all have a different interpretation. So, but it's the director's film, not.
And also, since those initial scouts tend to be smaller,
Yeah.
you're actually physically spending time with
Right.
the director
Right.
and
Yeah.
getting to know each
Yeah.
other and getting
Yeah.
your own little shorthand
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. And then when do you start talking about, you know, the look of the picture, or like some of the creative choices? Is already like there when you do the scout, or then do you start like storyboarding and going a little bit more into detail?
Very much depends on the director. I mean, I have worked with directors that have said, you know, they're going to concentrate on the script and the performances, and really they don't really, you know, they're at a distance from in terms of what the camera's going to do. Obviously you discuss how you're going to break down a scene and shoot it, but in terms of lighting and the whole look of the film, they may be more distanced from that. But on the other hand, then there's other directors that you work with that when you first meet them and talk about the script, they'll have a whole kind of mood board. They'll have a whole series of references, images that they feel is the look and the feel of the film. So it's
Well, and like on Blade Runner with Denis, we spent months with him in a hotel room just talking about the world.
Yeah.
And what the world was, and then what the world would look like.
Yeah, we probably had, you know, not consecutive, but we probably had something like 6 months in advance we were starting to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Denny and I went scouting, you know, we scouted London, you know, different locations in London, which we didn't use. And then we scouted a number of places in Hungary, Slovakia, you know, different things that weren't so much locations that we could definitely use, but they were locations that informed what the look of the film, the feel of the film. You know, it's nice to stand on a real location and look at it. Like in London, we went to Trevick Towers in Notting Hill, just north of Notting Hill. And we looked around that, and that, you know, things like that, just standing in a real space informs you about what you're feeling about the overall look of the film, you know. But everybody's got different ways of working, you know. I mean, the Coen brothers are very different in that they storyboard, and, you know, sometimes I've been involved in that and sometimes I haven't in the initial storyboarding. But they'll have those storyboards pretty well half done by the time we're location scouting. So, you know, then you're looking for locations that really reflect, you know, what they have in their minds.
Yeah. Speaking of Blade Runner 49, can you talk a little bit about the experience shooting in Hungary and integrating a few of your longtime crew members with the Hungarian crew, which you didn't know?
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, yeah, you would think that there would be issues, but there wasn't really.
No.
I mean, the only issue was that, frankly, that the film was bigger than a lot of the Hungarian crew realized. And as we went through prep, that became apparent. So we started bringing people in from outside to supervise, like we needed a rigging gaffer from outside to supervise some of the rigs and things like that. But in terms of us working together, it was no problem at all, other than a bit of language problem.
It helped bringing in the people that you knew, because they already had that shorthand down also, while the Hungarian people were confronted with so much and figuring out what Roger wanted.
Yeah, which is true. But I mean, the local crew, I mean,
they were great.
Yeah. I mean, they were fantastic and just so willing to try and find a way of doing something, even if they didn't have maybe a piece of equipment that I had in my mind as a way to do something. They would find a way of creating that kind of rig or whatever. You know, it was I mean, it was brilliant, really.
And also, when you're shooting in a place like Hungary, even if you want to bring some of your own people in, you still need the key people there that can speak the language, because most of maybe the grips and the electrics didn't speak English. So we needed the gaffer to be able to spit out all that information quickly in Hungarian.
Yeah, for instance, you know, Billy O'Leary, a gaffer I've worked with for years and years since Sid and Nancy in America. He was the overall gaffer in charge of the whole electric department, but he was rarely on set with me as I was shooting, because he couldn't communicate with a guy in the rigging because he didn't have the language. It would just take too long. So he was organizing everything up front and making sure, you know, the pre-rigs are going right, and he was testing things out and shooting tests even, you know. So it was you know, you find a relationship, you know.
Well-oiled machine.
Yeah, well, it was actually by the time we came to shoot.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun visiting to you guys kind of towards the end and get a little bit of an impression of the scope of the production. It was really, really something, really something. You were also very bold with the colors on Blade Runner 49, and it was in camera. I mean, you used filters, right? I mean, you essentially kind of burned in the look, which is maybe something you haven't done beforehand. What was it? What was the reason for that? What was? I mean, there's obviously like.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I always do put the image on the negative. I do very little in post. And I certainly did very, very little on Blade Runner in post. You know, there obviously is effects work, but in terms of colors or altering contrasts or anything, I didn't do much. All the imagery and the lighting was created in camera, and that's what I do. I don't see how you can do it after the event, really.
And also in the beginning, we had that discussion and that picture from, was it Shanghai with Denis, that it was. Beijing, it was cloudy, smoggy, but then certain colors shone through. You couldn't see much, but you would see a bright red in the background or whatever.
We had some very specific color references. Also also the dust storm in Australia a few years ago. Some pictures of you know, the Opera House in Sydney, and this really red-orange light caused by this dust cloud that enveloped Sydney. I forget what year it was now, a few years ago, 2011 maybe. But you know, so we had these sort of color references. But you know, you say I hadn't done that before, but then I hadn't done a science fiction film like that before. I would have done that before, but I never had the chance to do that before. I mean, the lighting I was doing was only kind of an extension of work I'd done in other films, but it was on a different scale. And obviously there were far more scenes that incorporated that kind of effect, you know.
And it also was a different reality too, because oftentimes you're shooting something that's naturalistic, but this, the natural reality of this particular world was different.
Right. You want it to feel natural, but it was within certain a different definition of natural, you know,
within those rules.
So you know.
Well, it was certainly stunning. I enjoyed it very, very much. And I think a lot of people would also be surprised that you using only, I think, one LUT, really. I mean, which you base, you know, the look on, and it's the same LUT you used on Blade Runner 49 was the one which you used on Sicario, and they're both very, very different looking pictures.
Very close. I think we might have tweaked it a little, but yes, basically used one LUT through the whole film. I mean, in the same way, when I shot film, I probably only used 2 emulsions. I would rarely, if ever, use different manufacturers. I mean, I would usually use a 100 ASA and a 200 ASA, maybe a 500 ASA when there was one. But you know, it would still be quite restricted. I've never mixed formats in a film, for instance. I've never done a film where I've shot some 35 and some 16. I don't know why. maybe I stick to one system and one luck. Yeah, maybe I like things simple. But I like to do it, you know, I like to do it in camera, like you're saying about the light and the colors. I like to create the image in camera. I don't need another lap, you know. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So you're basically approaching it, like you said, like an emulsion, right?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of times people get carried away. It's a wonderful tool to shoot digitally and have all these tools at hands, but sometimes I think they're getting a little bit carried away, and it's difficult to also communicate that then in post, you know, all these different ways to which you tweak from scene to scene. So I think it's
Well,
a wonderful.
the thing is, I'd stick with the one LUT, but then, you know, working with Josh Golish at DIT, I've worked with since In Time, in fact, you know, on some scenes, we'll tweak it a little bit, you know, we'll add a little bit of contrast, or maybe we'll take a bit of red out or something like that. And that metadata will go down the line, and that.
Yeah, but you don't do that.
But I don't do it often. I don't remember doing that on Blade Runner. I did it a little bit more on 1917 because it was very much a matter of matching, you know, one shot in a certain light to another shot in a slightly different light. So we were manipulating it a little bit, but I'm only talking about relatively doing a point of green or a point of red. It wasn't like a vast difference.
Yeah. You also referred earlier to your gaffer, Mr. O'Leary, and I worked with him on many films. Often you build these lighting rigs. I mean, I recall when you guys shot at in Time, and you were shooting at this mansion, and I came to see you. There was like this lighting rig on the ceiling, you know, with a lot of tungsten bulbs. So you really like to work tungsten light. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that location you're talking about. It was a very lightweight aluminum ring with something like 30. It was about an 8-foot ring, I think, 6 or 8 foot ring, and it had like 30 or 40 little golf ball bulbs in it. And the reason for that was like because it was a real location with a certain ceiling height, and I knew what we were shooting. The only way I could boost the effect of that chandelier in the middle of the room was to put a ring light tight on the ceiling, just out of shot. Where I knew it would be out of shot. You know, so I tend to make up those kind of gags to fit a certain location. I mean, one of the funniest ones I ever did was on a Coen Brothers film. We were shooting in a synagogue on A Serious Man, and you know, the scene's storyboarded, and we know in the synagogue, you know, it's crowded and the little kids up in the front, and we knew all these shots you're going to see 360 degrees, and we had to shoot all these shots in like 2 days. So I didn't use any film light. I created a big chandelier. It was like it's hexagonal rings, and there were like 5 of them, I think. And so it ended up like the top one was 15 feet diameter, and then it went down to one that was 4 feet. So it was a big kind of conical chandelier that created this wonderful soft light. You know, it's dimmed down, so the whole effect is kind of warm. And it seemed crazy to do it in the beginning, but when you think about the rigging and the lighting, if you'd used conventional film lights, it would have been kind of crazy. So to make up this one rig and then just put it up on a pole and block and tackle, it was actually quite a simple thing to do. But I mean, when you suggest something like that and you ask for the money to make it, you know, production usually goes, yeah, what the hell are you thinking? But then, you know, I say we shot a very complicated scene in 2 days, and that was it. So actually it was very cost effective in the end, you know.
That's wonderful. If I may, I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit and go back to one of the Coen pictures, or Brother Where Art Thou. That was the very first DI, right? I mean, You guys were
I think it was the
trailblazers.
first kind of like full Hollywood picture that was done all the way through in a DI system.
So how early in the prep did it become clear to you that you would digitize the entire movie and take it through a DI?
Well, we spent a couple of months with Beverly Wood, dear Beverly, at Deluxe, trying to get the look the guys wanted photochemically. But the big problem was we were shooting in the South in midsummer.
Yeah.
And, you know, we couldn't have picked a greener part of the country to shoot in. And the guys, of course, Joel and Ethan said, well, yeah, but we got to shoot now because of the casting, and we've got the money, so we're going to shoot. And we have to shoot there because of the tax breaks. And I said, but it's kind of green, isn't it? And you don't want green. So, you know, we spent a lot of time doing some tests, shooting, you know, tests up in Griffiths Park, and then doing all sorts of manipulation photochemically, and it just obviously wasn't going to happen. So then Joel and Ethan and I started talking about it, and they said, well, you know, they're doing a digital manipulation on a film called Pleasantville. And so what about that? We looked into it and started doing some tests, and it was really, I got to say, it was really primitive what we were doing. And
it wasn't there.
It wasn't
what
there.
You wanted.
You could see something that might be there.
Work.
But then we said, Joel and Ethan said, yeah, but you know, we always have a year between when we start and when we finish production, finish the cut. So
talk about a gamble.
In a year, surely the technology will have moved on enough to be able to do it. And so we kind of took the bet, really. And but actually doing it on the day, you know, the technology was there, but my God, it was hard. It was about 11 or 12 weeks doing the whole post on that film, you know, colorizing it, doing a reel, and then it was a spirit data cine, so you couldn't actually record anything until you wanted to do the whole reel, you know, till you were laying down the whole reel, and sometimes the power would would fall out, and then suddenly you'd lost about 4 or 5 days work. So it was really a bit of a struggle.
The system had a tendency to crash.
Yeah, just a tendency. Every 3 weeks it would crash. Yeah. And you go, oh no, that's 2, 3, 4 days of work all gone, you know.
Amazing. So, I mean, did you have any misgivings about this digital manipulation, about, you know, being such a central element?
After we did that DI, Roger said, I'm never doing another DI again.
I did. When I walked out the door, I did, yeah. Not that I wasn't happy with the result. I thought it was very interesting.
But it just was painful to do.
And in fact, today, people say, oh, we really like to see a 4K, you know, version of Oh Brother when it's done really well. And I don't know what they mean by that, because part of the movie is the fact it is only 1.8K resolution, and you can see the pixelization in some of the images, but it's part of the look. It actually,
it's an old look.
Yeah, because the guys at first said they wanted it to look like a faded postcard, and it does. You have this sort of texturing. Yeah, it's digital, but it still has that feeling of a badly printed postcard that's been sort of kind of hand tinted or something. I don't know. You know, so the look is part of the time, isn't it? You know, I wouldn't want to go back and do a higher resolution on it. Oh, that would be awful.
Yeah, I mean, that was the creative intent, right? And I think
it's part of the time, isn't it? You know, it's like years ago when TNT were colorizing black and white, classic black and white films. I mean, it's nonsense, really, you know.
Yeah. Did you add also some film grain in the DI, or?
No, not in that. No. There was plenty of noise.
Really,
There was plenty of noise going on anyway. You didn't need to add anything.
Excellent. And did this experience make you more aware of the industry of moving towards digital future and embracing digital more?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, James said I didn't really want to do one again after that,
Yeah.
but I did. I mean, I think
It was a while though.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it was a little bit, but no, I mean, you knew it was coming. I mean, and that's the thing, you know, there's the film's got its advantages and digital's got its advantages, and you know, you go from one to another, and it's, you know, I still go back and forth in my head. You know, it would be really nice to go back in time and there's no digital world, you know, and I'm still shooting film and nobody saw the image until you watch dailies. But that's something else. That's not realistic.
But you would also release on film, because nowadays, since you're releasing on DCP, and you've got to go through that digital phase, it's oftentimes better to stay in the digital phase.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it's one thing being nostalgic, but the other thing is the reality of technology and the advantages of digital, and the fact that, you know, everybody was doing a DI even now while they're still shooting film, but they're doing DIs because the technology is so, you know, it gives you so much more freedom in terms of the final look of the film and what you can do. Obviously, it's a great advance.
Yeah. Speaking of film, let me shift the gears again and go to some of your collaborations with Sam Mendes. And maybe we can start with the Jarhead. So that was obviously very, you know, a lot of it was handheld and you know, it kind of connected with you on the background of shooting documentaries beforehand.
Yeah.
So was that a lot of it like instinctively, or was it also very much intricately planned when you shot?
I was very surprised because I talked a lot with Conrad Hall, who was kind of a friend. You know, he was a friend. He used to come round for dinner and we would talk film for hours and hours. It was wonderful. And he would talk about working with Sam and how sometimes he didn't like the fact that, you know, Road to Perdition, for instance, was storyboarded, and Sam had a very clear idea of what he wanted out of it. So when Sam asked me about Jarhead, I was really thrilled. I mean, I thought the subject, and, you know, I read the book and everything. I was really thrilled. And I was expecting Sam to say, you know, well, we're going to storyboard it and we'll work it out. And then he said, I just let you know, I want to shoot the whole thing handheld, and I'm not going to rehearse anything. And I was like dumbstruck, you know. And then I thought, fantastic!
Well, you
fantastic!
Loved it.
I loved it,
yeah.
and I had such a great time. It's still actually probably my favorite movie I've worked on. Actually, I think it's a really good movie apart from anything else. But I really love shooting that film. And yeah, we didn't rehearse until the day. Obviously, we talked about the kind of shots and the kind of locations, and all. Obviously, things were very much selected to give a feeling of the real world that the film's set in. But we only started rehearsing when we had the actors on set on the day, and often we would start shooting without rehearsing. So it would be like I was shooting a documentary. I was just a little bit older, and so I'm running around with this, you know.
But you loved it. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And great actors, because they also embraced it. So it was fun.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's great because you could do a take and then discuss it with the actors, with Jake or whoever, and figure out how to choreograph the camera to their movements and just sort of build on it. And I found it absolutely wonderful way of working. You know, it's a bit like I'd done really, on documentaries, but I'd done it before on features. I did it on quite a bit on Sid and Nancy with Alex Cox.
Yeah.
You know, I love that way of working in it, but I don't get to do it very much.
Yeah, you had an ARRI 3C, or was it a 2C?
Well, I shot a lot of all the sync stuff was a 535B, it must have been, but which I loved as a camera. I mean, I've still got, Otto's still got it, I hope. He was going to put it in a museum, but we said, no, I might shoot film one day, so keep it for a while longer.
Yeah.
But yes, a lot of the very fast stuff we shot with ARRI 2C, 2C or 3C, you know, the little point and shoot. We put a pistol grip on it and ran around, and I forgot the name of the operator.
Yeah.
We invented this little like a little sight to go on the camera, so you could kind of find the frame with this little kind of sight.
Just a little rangefinder.
Yeah, like a little rangefinder. So you're running around with a camera like it's a pistol grip, because some of it was very, very active, and there were explosions and all the rest. So
Scott.
Yeah, Scott Sakamoto. We had sometimes we ran 2 cameras, and Scott worked out this little sight rig so he could run around. So both of us were doing it sometimes on the same action. You know, we worked out, you take it from this side and this side, I'll be over here, and then if you cross here, I'll cross there, so I won't get you in shot, and all that sort of stuff. It was great.
Scott is an excellent Steadicam operator, but at that for this particular project, he was also shooting handheld, right?
Yeah.
Steadicam, not at all, or?
No Steadicam. No, not at all. I don't think he did one. No, we didn't. No, not on the main body of the film. No. And then we did one scene in particular that was really, really kind of hilarious, where the platoon's supposed to be under the oil fires in Kuwait, and it's meant to be raining oil, and it's getting dark. And so we set up in the desert near El Centro, this it's about 100-foot square area that the effects guys had put cranes over, and they were spraying blackened vegetable oil over this whole area while this platoon was trying to dig in. So everybody's completely covered in this black dripping oil, which felt like real oil, but it was vegetable oil. And there's Scott and myself and our assistants, Andy Harris, and we've all got black polythene bags over us. Garbage bags with little eye slits, and the camera's covered in these things. And we would get one take, you know, for about 4 or 5, maybe 4 minutes shooting, you know, getting shots of the characters, or starting off wide and then moving in. And then it would take us about half an hour just to sort of take all the crap off and clean the cameras before we could go again. It was like, I remember that was really funny. It was quite a good scene too. It looked quite real, didn't it?
Yeah, incredible. Well, maybe we can shift a little bit to the most recent project with Sam. It was 1917, which you won the Oscar for, and it's again quite amazing picture. What did the large format of the Alexa LF bring to the look of this film? How did you? Well,
I you know, Sam, when he first started talking about it, you know, obviously we done Skyfall together, and he said, can we do something a little bit more high resolution than Skyfall even? He said, not that I didn't love it, but is there something that, because he knew it would be this landscape and about textures and stuff. And I thought then, I knew about the LF because we'd been testing it and everything.
The big LF,
the studio LF. So we were at the Mandoki Film Festival, right? Manuki Film Festival in Macedonia, and we thought on the way home we would go to Munich, right?
We had talked to Franz about it in LA over dinner,
But we made a point of dropping in at Munich to see Franz Krauss, and we agreed to do a sort of seminar there with his students at the film school there, and at the same time twist a few arms to see if we could get, you know,
done in time.
A small version, you know, a mini version of the LF done in time for our shoot. So this was like August or something, wasn't it? Yeah. And then we were shooting we needed the camera in February of the next year.
And it was tight. It was really tight. At one point we got the word, because we needed 3. And we got the word, oh no, you'll have 1. And we can't shoot on one camera. You know, we just couldn't. But that was coming from the tech department. And It all worked out, and it was amazing.
And they were really wonderful, actually, because first off, it was funny. They're taking us a tour, right, of ARRI's, manufacturing place, and showing us how cameras are made. Every sort of 5 minutes, we're dropping. Yeah, well, how's the LF going to work? Where are you going to do that?
LF, yeah.
And they would look at us, but at the end, they all agreed, said, yeah, why not? This is such a challenge that I think they loved the challenge, for one, and knew that there was such a particular project. And we said, there's not going to be another camera used. We have to use a Mini.
And we were also the final testing phase because, we didn't end up having the end product, but we had very close to the end, and then we would find things. We were in contact all the time, so it was kind of fun. It made Andy a little grayer.
Andy got gray on that one. But I mean, I must say, you guys, ARRI was fantastic. It was just great, because
amazing.
If we hadn't have had that camera, we could have done it on a standard Mini, but it wouldn't have had the look. And what I really wanted about the LF, and I didn't want to go to 65 because the camera's too big for anything else, but I like the LF, the fall off of the focus felt like the images that we'd seen of the war, of the First World War, the kind of slightly shallow depth of field that you get with those kind of formats. And so it just felt right. And it was so nice when everybody said, yeah, okay, we'll go for it, we'll make it.
And we use the signature primes, or actually I should say the signature prime.
Yeah.
We basically used the 40 millimeter. We had a 35 and a 47 if we needed it, but
yeah, we used it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Just about everything shot on a 40. It's quite old fashioned, really. It's like shooting in the 1950s, you got one lens.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, it was the right person. You twisted their arm with Franz, and our engineers were really working hard and sweating some bullets, but the reward afterwards was all.
Well, they loved it. I mean, when the guys came to ARRI in London there, with the first prototype, it was like you could see everybody was so thrilled. I mean, we were thrilled, but they were. What do you think? What do you think? It was just great. Those moments you kind of live for,
Yeah.
Great.
Well, obviously with the approach of being, having the appearance of being one continuous shot, I mean, that must have been logistically extremely challenging.
Yeah, it was, but the thing is, a number of people have asked about that and said, well, how did you do it? How do you figure out on the day where you were going to end one and start another? And I said, well, how do you think you're going to do a shot in a trench that's like 200 or 300 yards long and just make it up on the day? No, everything was so worked out in storyboard, in prep. I mean, we spent months talking about that, how to cover it.
And we also had a lot of rehearsals because we had the actors for that prep period. So it was great because in building the trenches, we needed to know where there needed to be a little side trench if we needed the camera to do that and to go the other way. So we would rehearse it and with the real actors and know exactly when they'd hit that line and where we would build that side trench.
Like we went to Salisbury Plain where we knew we would be shooting because there's not really anywhere else we could figure to do it. And we walked through locations with the actors before the farmhouse was built, before the orchard and the walls were put up. We walked through the space with the actors, saying the lines, figuring how long can this angle hold if you're pulling them or you're behind them? How long do you want to be behind them before they go in the door of the house? How long do you want to be behind them as, one goes out of the door and goes towards the barn? How far is the barn from the house? How long is that shot gonna, right down to the last shot I remember we talked about more than anything is the last shot where Schofield walks to the tree and sits by the tree. and it was about the distance between the tree and the hospital tent. Okay, so you get to an end of a movie, how long will it sustain somebody walking to a tree with nothing happening? It's interesting because it's funny because I still have this conversation with Sam now, because I think it could have been longer. You know, because I was always pushing for longer. It's just, how long can you hold that? Because it's such a, you know, you've come through all this kind of, you know, journey, seeing all this horror, and this guy is walking to this tree in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, you know, it's all those things have to be worked out. You can't just do it on the day. You can't just say, oh, well, I'll move that hospital tent because it's too far away from the tree. No, you can't, because that takes that's a day's work right there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this conversation is going to be popping up when I watch it the next time. So thank you for that. Well, also, you also had some really amazing enabling technology with the gyro stabilized rigs and Trinity, and a little shout out to Charlie Rizek, who is also
well,
you know, he was
you can say technology, but Charlie Rizek and Pete Cavacuti, great technology, but a couple of really great operators and a great grip crew, because even when it wasn't them and it was stabilized, you had Gary Hims and Malcolm and that running through these trenches. I was fine. I was sitting on my controls in a van, you know,
with the wheels.
Yeah, really, really amazing what you guys have done, and also there was the challenge of you had to shoot under cloud coverage, right? I mean, so you guys were waiting around quite a bit. So I'm just wondering, which did you find the most accurate weather app to be, Roger?
Everybody had a different opinion on that one.
Yeah, I had like 4 apps, and I'd choose the one I like most. But no, it was really hard. I mean, we were so lucky that the weather that year gave us a chance to shoot in cloud. Because if it had been the year before, or it'd been the year that had just gone, I don't know how we would have shot.
We were also lucky that we had the support of the studio, because the first day we couldn't shoot. So they were saying, is this even possible to do? And then they're waiting to hear how the first day went. And then they hear, oh, it didn't go. And we wondered what would happen, but they stood by us. And
no, that was great. But also everybody, you know, not only Sam, I mean, imagine a director waiting to shoot the scene and the cinematographer saying, oh, I think we should wait, you know, another 5 hours for a cloud. And then the actors, everybody had to be standing by waiting to do a shot.
You could not go to the loo because that sun, you know, might go in when you were up there.
But just the patience and the collaboration that it took between everybody to be ready when the moment came to shoot the shot. Because sometimes you would only get, you know, one chance in a number of hours. You know, the last shot of the film, I wanted the sun to come out at the end of the film. And there was one little cloud. I remember we were sitting there waiting for this one little cloud come from the horizon all the way up to near the sun. And then it was like, how long is this cloud gonna last? When will the sun come out from behind it? Oh my God. And it happened, and the cloud came over, and then we all panicked to start shooting. And we shot the shot. It's the first take of the end of the film. And the sun came out just as Schofield sat down at the tree.
And I'm going, he wanted.
I cannot believe this.
Yeah. And then it never happened again. And we did a whole lot of other takes.
And we did another 26 takes. And I'm going, oh my God, I hope Lee, the editor, agrees with me that the take 1 is the one.
And it's in the movie.
And it is take 1 in the movie.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, it's great. People's patience, but then the amount of luck we had as well was pretty extraordinary.
That's wonderful. So many people have asked you if you would go back to film since embracing digital. But my question is would you go back to Super 35 digital after working in large format?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the project, you know. I mean, we're talking to Pablo Lorraine yesterday, and he shot a lot on Super 16 film. Yeah, I would go back to shoot Super 16. Why not? It depends on the project. I mean, I wouldn't say it would be easy. I don't think the infrastructure is quite as good as it used to be, put it that way. But you know,
He's asking whether you would go digitally from the LF to the.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd go to any. That's what I'm saying. I'd go to any format if it felt right for the project. You know, yeah. I mean, I like the LF, but it's not necessary. It's like why shoot 16mm opposed to 35mm film? Well, you do it because you like the texture, but you also like the depth of field. You also like the presence. I mean, some people love shooting anamorphic. I don't like anamorphic. I mean, I haven't done a project where I've wanted to do it. I was going to do it on a film with Joel and Ethan, but the film fell through. And I think it would have been right for that film. But I haven't done a film where I felt it's the right format. I like the presence of a character in a space. I don't like to separate them with out of focus kind of backgrounds, not mushy out of focus backgrounds, you know. So, but it depends on the project. You know.
No,
On
absolutely.
an iPhone. If it felt right, I'd shoot it on an iPhone. I would. I mean, wouldn't have any hesitation if it felt right and the director wanted to go that way. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now you make my heart bleed, Roger.
I know, really.
We were talking to Chris Menges a few weeks ago, right? Who started out his career doing documentaries, and he shot all these amazing documentaries in these crazy, you know, Vietnam and in the Burmese Triangle, and that was all with a hand-wound Bolex. You understand the freedom he had and the places he could go. I mean, you know, he went into Tibet with the guerrillas and stuff, filming with his little Bolex. But look what he achieved with it. So it's you pick the technology for the project, not you know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And going back to your remark about the anamorphics, you know, knowing that you never shot on a project on anamorphics before, I was very excited to show you our master anamorphics, but again, they were just not right for this project.
And I never would, but you know,
We might be calling you up for that.
Yeah.
All right, well, you got my number.
I don't know. It's like, it's funny, you know, people say, well, why did you shoot a certain film widescreen and another film 185? Why did you and the director go that way? There's no rule, but it's something just feels right, doesn't it? You know, so, you know, there was one film we were going to do, Joel and Ethan, and it just felt, anamorphic would have felt right. But there you go.
Yeah. No, it absolutely. It was what's right, what feels right, and what's right for the project.
Yeah,
was just teasing you.
It's just a preference. It's just a feeling, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, earlier you kind of with the conversation about the mini LF, you alluded to the relationship, you know, with manufacturers and how important there is in getting the feedback and helping us refine our products.
Right.
So, you know, it was when I first showed you the Alexa Classic for In Time. I remember it very vividly when you came by our little office there on Victory Boulevard and had everything set up, and you put it on your shoulder. That was your first inclination, and you turn around and right, and you look through the electronic viewfinder, and we didn't have the smooth mode. We didn't have that oversampling implemented at that time. And you just put the camera down and said, I can work like this. So for me, it was like at that moment, okay, that's game, set, match, moving on.
No, ergonomically, it was really good. But that viewfinder's a killer. You know, that's why I pressed so hard to have an optical viewfinder. I would still love an optical viewfinder. I know it's not possible.
But they've made a better viewfinder.
But the electronic viewfinder is much, much better because of, you know, not just but most cinematographers said they cannot look through that viewfinder. But I still can't light through an electronic viewfinder. I just will not do it. Yeah.
No, you were very instrumental. After, you know, we had announced, you know, the 3 types of Alexa with the studio. I remember, you know, when we met, there was no hello. There was like the first thing out of your mouth was, when do I get my optical viewfinder? And I had to
that every time.
absolutely, and I had to break it to you at one point that we were really considering not building this camera because, you know, it was felt that the electronic finder was good enough, for lack of a better term, but it was good that you weighed in and you reached out to France at that time. I think it was very important to build that finder. So again, that also speaks to your feedback. And then I also remember when we had the M camera and you used it for a sequence on Skyfall, and it was obviously cumbersome because it was tethered. It was a small body, but it was still tethered to the processing backend. So I think it was very exciting when Michael Jonas and I came by. You did the DI, I think it was for Prisoners down at eFilm, and we showed you the regular mini, and you guys got really excited about that. And again, it's all.
I'm old enough to go back to the time when you shot documentaries and you wanted to shoot sync sound. The camera and the Naga tape recorder had to be wired together. There was no crystal sync. I mean, it was happening, but when I was at film school, we would shoot with a tethered, tethered between the camera and the tape recorder
which doesn't
maintain
mean you
sync.
want that though.
No, but the freedom you got once you could be free with the camera from the recordist. If you imagine you're doing a documentary and you're like, I mean, I did a number in different places, but you wander around following people. If you're always having to figure how the sound recordist is following you and they can't be sort of separate from you, I mean, you can imagine the restrictions. So it was a little bit the same thing, you know, to have somebody running around behind you with the first M camera, you know.
Yeah. So what other general technological developments during your career have been important or useful?
I think remote heads were the biggest shift for me, which happened for me around Barton Fink, actually, you know. That's when I started using a remote head a little bit more. And then, in fact, I've been using the same remote head, the PowerPod Classic, ever since. It's got a few welding marks on it now because it broke a few times, but I've still got it. We had Andy had to get it fixed in Morocco once, and at the local, I don't know, the local blacksmith took it in and fixed our PowerPod. It was quite good though, really. So, but yeah, that, you know, remote heads is a really big deal, actually. I mean, I still prefer looking through the camera, so it's hard, you know, if you're lighting. There's no alternative to looking through the camera, and not with a electronic viewfinder either. But it's tough. But I think remote heads and all the remote technology has really allowed you to do a lot more things that you couldn't before. And especially for me, because I light and operate, the fact that I can walk away from the console, you know what I mean? And I can kind of look at the lighting and talk to my gaffer, and then I go back and sit down and do the shot. That's if I had to get on a crane and the grips had to balance it up and all that nonsense, you know what I mean? I would find it really hard to light and operate. Well, as I did, because I did it for many years. But
many of the audience of Camerimage are students. So what are your standout memories, you know, from being a student at NFTS, and how do you feel film school education is now from what it was then?
It's interesting because we've done a couple of podcasts on this with NYU, the head of NYU, and the head of UCLA. So it's definitely on the top of our minds. Yeah,
I mean, I think, as Bill McDonald, UCLA, was saying the other day to us, you know, you've got to be really careful because it suits some people and maybe doesn't suit others, you know, film school. I mean, for me, I still can't see how I would have got into the film industry any other way. You know, and it was good for me because it gave me a kind of basis, a kind of institution that I could feel comfortable in, but also it was quite anarchic. So I was like free to play and experiment, you know.
It's also interesting how different film schools are.
Yeah, they're also
so
different.
Really researching and finding out what kind of system that particular film school has and whether it's a system you would respond to or not. Because there's also some people that we've talked with that have said, oh, I was in film school for 2 days and then I left.
Yeah.
And they're very successful. So. And
they're usually people though that had a camera of some sort, whether it was 8mm or whatever, when they were very young, and had their own kind of ideas about filmmaking. I never touched a film camera till I went to film school. I don't remember ever seeing one. I never touched a film camera. Obviously I was into stills at the time, but it wasn't until I film school, which is 19, when I was like 23.
It's different now because everybody
now
has
it's
a
different.
camera in their phone.
Yeah, it's totally different now. So you know, but I have good and bad memories about film school, but I don't, as I say, I can't imagine any other way I'd had the career I've had without having been to film school myself.
Yeah. So would your recommendation be just go out there and shoot, compose, be it with your iPhone?
That's always the recommendation.
Yeah, that's always the recommendation.
Learn what you respond to, learn what you want to do. Don't try and copy people.
Right. And that's the thing. For me, film school gave me that space. You know, I mean, we watched lots of films. I got to talk to filmmakers and cinematographers and other students, and I could find how I saw things in a way. It gave me that space to find myself, I suppose. So, but other people have done that from very young. They made their, like Joel and Ethan, they made their own films when they were kids, you know.
Joel told us that the first film that he made, he didn't realize you could cut it afterwards. So he would, if the first scene is in the kitchen, he would shoot that, he would shut down the camera, he would go outside to the driveway, and then if it cut back to the kitchen, he'd come back in and do the kitchen. So he learned.
It still works that way. No, it doesn't.
Well, it depends on the film, right?
No, but I mean, you know.
I know it's very dear to you guys' heart, you know, to answer those questions coming from students and inspiring filmmakers. So I apologize for that, but I would refer them really to your website, to Team Deakins and the podcast. They are so enlightening. It's such a wonderful passion project. I can only commend you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time today. We want to be mindful of your time, and again, thank you. And I hope to see you soon when all this craziness is over and we can sit down and catch up in person. That will be wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, is that we have our own perspective on things. So, you know, you can listen to us, but that's us. I mean, everybody's so different. That's what we've, you know, we know anyway, but especially through the podcast, it's been reaffirmed that everybody is different. Everybody has a different way of seeing things and a different way of making a movie, and that's to be celebrated, you know.
Absolutely, and I think that what makes this your podcast and this effort so valuable and so wonderful, because not everybody's agreeing, right? There's all this difference of opinion. It's how can you achieve this shot? How did you create this particular shot in your movie? It's really, really amazing. And again, thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time.
No, and pleasure.
Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, all right, Stephan.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.